What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Schola Progenium. Today I'm going to teach you how to get your community to hate you. I half joke about this because this is actually some cheesy shit. So I pay attention to the online stuff. And one thing I've noticed in some Discord channels is that people are talking about barricade placement. And traditionally this has been, I think by most members of the community, thought of as a defensive tool. Where you'll get a barricade, you'll set your dude up, and you'll be like, look, I'm providing cover for him. He's not going to get shot from a vantage point. He's not going to get shot because he's concealed, blah, 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 blah. Okay. We all get that. We understand it. I'm not going to explain that, right? Because I think that pretty much that's everyone's general understanding. I've mentioned, and the reason why I have Into the Dark here is I think that a lot of barricade placement is exaggerated on this map. And it's a lot more easy to see like the different cheeses you can pull. But you can pull this in open play too. I just think it's a lot easier to show the tricks you can do on Into the Dark, because barricades matter a lot more. Here's what I'm going to start out with. There's kind of like three major tricks that you can kind of pull with barricade placement, and these tricks are kind of thought of as like offensive barricade placement. What I mean by defensive and offensive, like offensive is hindering your opponent versus defensive is protecting your team. So what I'm going to be teaching you guys are just offensive plays. And like I said, you can use these in open play, but it's just easier for me to show you them in Into the Dark. Specifically this mission, because I believe like I saw some people talking about this. So the first thing I want to talk about is slowing your opponent down. So a lot of people are not really too sure what somebody means when they talk about slowing your opponent down. So what this means is you're going to be putting a barricade in a place that is going to force your opponent to take an extra turn to go somewhere. So I have our Flamer Nurgle guy right here, right? Normally this would take him one turn with a move and a dash from his current position to get onto that objective, right? Well, so let's say that you want to stop this guy from getting onto this objective and scoring. So you could place this thing right here, and all of a sudden he's moving 4, he's -2 for going over, and then he can go like another 3, right? He's not making it onto that objective. If you place the barricade basically in this corner spot, you could place it here, you could place it here. Personally, I like to place it in a position where it's getting the most value. So what I'll do is I'll look at what my opponent's bases are. So, you know, typically they're going to be all one base. There's some teams that kind of have mixed bases, like I'm talking about like Breachers, Wormblade, those kind of teams. But you want to look at your opponent's base for the majority of the models. In this case, we're looking at a Chaos Space Marine on 32 mil base, right? So basically what you want to do is you want to create a gap here that's smaller than 32 millimeters. Basically what this is doing is it's essentially extending the length of the wall, because they can't move through here without hitting that traversable piece right there. And then this just extends out, so they can't, like, you know, let's say they have an angle to move around this. But by having the barricade out here, it's harder to get around that angle without hitting the traversable terrain. As you may notice, there's a second barricade. This is generally not a requirement, to be honest. The first barricade is enough to stop most teams. But let's say you're, instead of Chaos Space Marines, let's say you're fighting against Corsairs, right? Corsairs have an ability that's called Eldari Agility. So it basically gives them an extra movement, or an extra inch of movement for a dash, and an extra inch of movement for the normal move. So if you did not have this here, right? if you did not have this here, we can measure this out. This player could move 5, and yep, they're slowed down, but it doesn't matter because they have a 11-inch movement. So they're still able to get over the barricade. Well, you could go the extra mile and say, no, you don't get to do that. So what you'll want to do is you want to once again place this barricade. I like to place it a little bit further away from the wall because I find that it's easier to place this barricade once you're placing it farther away from the wall. So you got to be outside of 2 inches, right? So you place this here. Once again, you still can't get your base here because it's smaller than the size of the base. And so you have a player with like Eldari agility. Sure, they can go 9, but they don't have the movement to get over that extra base. So this is useful for really fast teams if you really want to stop them. This also works for teams with like optimized gate or the I forget what the Crute ability is. There's a Crute stratagem that allows them to leap over barricades also. This works the same way for them. It does not work for like teleport abilities. So let's say like you had like a 1,000 Suns, or I mean we can just keep it for Corsairs because Corsairs have a teleport. So like you had your guy right here, obviously you can just teleport his guy over, and you can still grab the objective. So it's not 100% foolproof, but I mean this does work for fly too, right? And the reason why it works for fly is just because you can't physically put your base. What am I trying to pull up? We're trying to pull Harlequins. Sure. Oh, this is my 40k army. Oops. Do I have any clowns in here? Ignore the Eldar. Really? I don't have any clowns? Give me a second. Where are you, clowns? There you go. Alright. I know I could have just done it with a model, but I want to send the point home that we're talking about fucking clowns, but I'm not allowed to talk about them on the internet. I saw how much people just bashed was it Can You Roll a Crit for talking about fucking clowns? Some guy got really salty when he suggested this team should be nerfed. They absolutely should, by the way. Anyways, so these guys once again can move 9, right? So they don't give a fuck about barricades. But, uh-oh. Did I position this right? Yeah, 3 inches is right there. So you're going to have to position your barricade, like, slightly back. This was set up to block the Corsair. But you can totally do this. Okay, so you have your barricade. Notice that you can't score it from this side. This clown should therefore not be able to score from this side. So you go 5, 1. Did I fuck this up? Alright, it looks like I'm just full of shit. As you can see, this team is just busted as fuck and is dumb. So I guess clowns are the only ones. It is possible to block them in on certain maps, but you obviously can't do it from here. So that's one thing you could do. Another thing you can do is block space. So I want to divert your attention over to here, right? So we got this corner pocket, and this is kind of an awkward pocket when you're playing in some matchups, because your opponent can take some guy and just throw him here. So you can actually use barricades to block space, right? And what I mean by this is we're blocking off this corner right here because it kind of makes it awkward to get to him, because you're gonna have to, like, even just like a normal move from this position, you're still going to probably hit this wall for obscuring, and this guy in the corner is going to be obscured. So it makes it, like, this is a really strong defensive position to guard this objective. However, if you put a barricade here, your opponent can't get to this position, because look, we take this guy. Uh-oh, your base is too big, you can't fit in there. Isn't that great? So you can use these to negate space. And once again, you're following the exact same rule with trying to measure out like the distance between the barricades. Why did I take these off? The barricade here and the wall. You just make it smaller than the base. You do the exact same logic here. So you take the wall, measure out roughly an inch or so if you're looking at a 32 mil base. Just smaller than 32, or 32 is fine. And then you just put the barricade there, and all of a sudden this is now impossible for this model to get into that little corner, meaning if this guy wants to tuck in on this side, guess what? He's right there. Suddenly that makes getting around this angle much easier, as you can just get a guy roughly right here and you can see the entire model. So he can't hide in this corner now, and you can get here with just a normal move, which is really useful. So that's something you want to think about, especially if you think your opponent might be going for this spot. You could think about blocking that off. The last thing that I want to talk about is something that I really don't see people use all that often, and this is a really easy thing. So typically, when I see somebody going up to a barricade, they put their model like this, right? You put it flat up against the barricade. And I think that's not a good habit. I think if you're doing this, you should try to forcibly stop yourself from doing this. First of all, this does two things. This forces you to take the traverse if you want to move forward. You could move side to side, and you could move back without hitting the traversable terrain, but you're going to be having to -2 to your movement regardless if you want to go forward. My suggestion, go up to an inch back, right? In most situations, if you position your guy correctly, you're still going to be, you can even go right there if you think someone's going to get an angle on you. But in most situations, you're still going to be within 1 inch of terrain. You're still going to be perfectly getting the same defensive benefits that barricades would provide. However, this gives you some more lateral movement. So you're getting, I would say just eyeballing things, maybe like an extra ½ inch to an inch of movement added, because instead of traversing the terrain, you're kind of circumnavigating it. Am I using that word correctly? You're going around it. But you're still going to lose some movement because you're not going straight. So that's just something to keep in mind. But it is more movement going slightly forward and to the side and then stepping around it than just simply moving through it. But you can push this a little bit further, right? As you see, my Storm Duelist is holding the objective by just barely having like a pixel of my toe in on the objective. If you notice, though, I positioned the objective in a place where I'm within 1 inch of the terrain, but I have not provided my opponent the ability to charge from this side of the terrain, right? So if you look at where the butcher's positioned right now, if you measure out their distances, we're basically exactly in charge range, right? Well, the problem is the butcher can't really charge straight on, right? This works really well. I mean, obviously you can go around it, right? But this works really well if you are playing against a team that can charge from concealment. So, for example, Commandos. I'm determined to pull out the team if I want to talk about them. So that's just the way we're going it. All right. So we got Commandos. They can charge from concealment. Load in. Do it. Do it. There we go. Boom. You got your Commando. Normally, the Commandos want to charge over here. This is really big power play for Commando because they can charge in, fight the guy, kill the guy, hide behind the barricade. That's like Commando 101, right? Well, they can't do that now because this is further than an inch away, right? Like I said, obviously, if they have the movement, you can usually finagle some angle on this side. But this puts the Commando in a really bad position because if there's models back here, they can just immediately shoot and kill this guy. So this is a really good defensive play that you can go and force a trade in a situation that you normally wouldn't be able to force a trade on, right? Because normally you'd be able to, the commando player would be able to charge in and kill this guy, and you're going to have to commit another guy into the fight to kill this guy. But you don't have to do that because now the commando player either A, isn't going to be able to charge you, or B, is going to have to charge you from this angle, thus opening you up to punishing the player for doing so. So there's a couple more tricks to barricades, but I just wanted to talk about that just while it's fresh on my mind and while I'm seeing people talk about it, because it is important, and I don't think these plays are really something that people talk about all that much. So I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you next time. Later.